Yes, that's very correct, yeah. First of all, thank you very much for coming here. I know the session after lunch is the most difficult one, so happy to see everybody up and awake. I'm going to, instead of the introduction of SparkLabs and myself, we're going to play a short video of 1 minute, and then we're going to dive into Saudi Arabia and why I actually decided 6 years ago to move there. If we can play the video, please. Yeah, so this video was created for our last cohort that we did with MCIT Ministry and NTDP program in Saudi Arabia. So now when I travel around and people ask me, how is it to be in Saudi Arabia? And everybody has different views. They have some ideas what Saudi was. And it's almost impossible to explain Saudi Arabia unless you visit it. There are few things that have changed and what I think investors and the company should realize. Saudi money doesn't travel out of Saudi anymore. The times of coming and fund managers coming and asking for 100 million and getting $1 billion have passed. The whole Saudi ecosystem, from institutional capital, from family offices, from entrepreneurs, is encouraged to invest inside of the Saudi Arabia. That's why Saudi Arabia is currently probably the biggest construction site ever. Saudi Arabia is leading in fintech. They're doing some incredible projects on infrastructure, smart cities, et cetera, et cetera. So what I always say is, if you have a good idea or you need a scale-up market, come to Saudi Arabia. They can be an amazing launch pad for you to attack US market and et cetera, et cetera. Sorry. So Saudi Arabia, I think all of us here realize what it is. You know, we have a huge mammoth of PIF, a sovereign fund that is, I think, next year is going to close with almost $1 trillion under asset management. They have a national development fund that has 12 sub-funds for a cultural development fund, tourism development fund, national infrastructure fund. All of these funds have a clear mandate what they need to invest. The most importantly, as an investor, as an entrepreneur, as a founder of a company, you have a roadmap for next 5 years, and it's called Vision 2030. So whenever somebody asks me, like, what can I do in Saudi Arabia? Like, there is a document published that can actually show you the whole path where they want to be in 2030. If you follow that path and follow the investment funds, follow the criteria that government is already achieving, it's a very obvious where you want to do, what you want to play. So it's an easy market to enter in a way they know where they want to be. The good thing about Saudi Arabia is as well that sometimes we don't have to have elections. So you have a constant stable path. And Saudi Arabia is actually achieving all of the goals that they have put as a 2030 vision. What Mr. Saleh rightly said, we have a 35% of workforce coming from women. In 2015, that was only 15%. Some of the fields that are really interesting, and this is where I think that the Korean companies and Korean investors can really come closely. First of all, it's because historical ties. If you go to Riyadh, you're going to see that the major road, King Fahd Road, was built by a Korean company. Ministry of Interiors was built by Hyundai. So there is a real connection and appreciation of Korean mentality, government inside of Saudi Arabia. His Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman always compares and said, where was Korea? We were at one point in the same level. Look where Korea is now. So I do believe coming from Korea as a Korean company, Korean investor, it is an advantage in Saudi Arabia. Especially when we look at smart cities. One of the smartest cities ever developed was Busan. Well, why are there not companies who are going to promote their services there? Renewable energy, hydrogen. You have companies like Aqua Power who is building a tremendous amount of solar and wind and hydrogen. They just announced now that they're gonna have to develop 1.9 gigawatt of AI data center infrastructure. 1.9 gigawatt is, if we combine all the development companies in Europe and Middle East, it's impossible to develop it. Why don't we go here to some of the Korean companies who know how to do it? And these are the real opportunities with backing of the sovereign fund. So this is not something that is going to happen maybe if the financing is done. This was done by 2030 Vision, and this will happen. Artificial intelligence. So 2 weeks ago, I was at a conference when President Trump visited the Crown Prince, and on that stage there was CEO of NVIDIA, CEO of IBM, Elon Musk, and et cetera, et cetera. And they launched a vehicle called Humane. Humane is a $100 billion fully integrated AI factory. So this means that you can play from energy production to data center production, to chip, to software, applications. Pick a side where you want to pick, and there is $100 billion to backing it, yeah? Another interesting project is gaming. So Saudi Arabia has created a fund called Savi. They have put $39 billion into this fund to promote and make Saudi Arabia as the biggest gaming spot in the world. So Korea had a lot of gaming companies, successful companies, so why don't we bring them there? Tourism, culture. I will give you the best example how tourism and culture has developed. 10 years ago, you couldn't play music in your car driving in the middle of Riyadh. It was not allowed. Now we are having female Saudi artists singing. We have a biggest festival called Middle Beast. There is more than 250,000 visitors. You have shows and culture events every day. So this is how the things are changing. We are having, as a tourism development fund, they're backing all hotels who want to come to Saudi Arabia. So not only with them providing an equity investment, but debt investment. We are opening hotels in Red Sea, and Red Sea, if you ask me, is probably more beautiful than Maldives. Semiconductors. So what the Saudi Arabia leadership decided is we need to be one of the semiconductor hubs in the world. How they did it? They created a national semiconductor hub. They put a very smart person on it, and they created a fund to actually attract semiconductor companies into Saudi Arabia, and so on, and so on, and so on. Now, this is one of the nicest projects that I always like to say, because people always ask me, tell me about NEOM. And NEOM, I think, was one of the best idea ever, because after that picture of that line project was published, people were like, okay, where is Saudi Arabia? Like, what is this, yeah? And NEOM is an amazing project, and the line is just part of it. But there are some more projects that for investors might be a little bit easier to understand. So King Salman Park is a 1.7 million square meter property in the middle of Riyadh. It's 8 times bigger than Central Park in New York, and it's going to have 12,000 units, it's going to have a theater, it's going to have a museum in the middle of Riyadh. So if you're a real estate investor, if somebody told you, well, while Central Park was being built, do you want to invest in it? The answer would be yes. This is now happening in Saudi Arabia. Challenges. Okay. Now this is the thing. We have cameras. Yeah. Okay, we have it. Yeah. So of course, because Saudi Arabia is still an emerging market, we are still facing some issues that, because we are trying not to run. We are sprinting. If you look at the average age of the ministers, you're talking about 42-year-old gentlemen and women. And these guys are devoting every second of their life to making changes. They know that they need to have, because of the leadership, they have a very short period of time that they need to achieve these changes. So they don't have time sometimes to surgically do this and this change, but they need to do it rapidly. So now if you're a private sector and investor, sometimes the changes can be a little bit confusing. So that's why I always say you need to spend time in Saudi. If you are thinking about, let me enter Saudi Arabia by having an office in Dubai and sending a representative every 2 weeks there for 3 days, don't bother. Don't bother. If you decide you're going to enter Saudi Arabia market, enter it properly. Because otherwise you're just wasting your time and your resources. Complex regulations. So government is changing regulation day by day in a positive way. But the thing is that, so for example, you can open a company in Saudi Arabia and get an investment license in a day. You just go to Ministry of Investment and you get your investment license. Then it comes a bit of an issue that you need to have a Saudi operator, et cetera, et cetera. So all of these things are being constantly updated, and every day opening a company's dealing business there, it is easier. Sales cycle, what people always ask me, like, okay, Ivan, I'm coming to Saudi constantly. I met with the CEO, I met with the chairman, I met their grandchildren. They invite me for breakfast, for weddings, for funerals, but I still didn't sell anything. So you have to understand the culture. In Saudi Arabia, no doesn't come easy. And they really want to get to know you. There's no intention of them for, just like carrying you around and, not telling you no. They just want to really get to know you. You will create the best business partners, the best friends in your life in Saudi Arabia, but you have to invest time. Now, we need local talent. You have amazing universities. You have King Saud University, you have KAUST, you have a lot of actually Koreans and Saudi student exchange. So there is a talent. The problem is because the country is growing so rapidly, you're going to have an issue, how do you retain this talent in your organization? Because what happens is always, you have animals like PIF who are always going to come, and after you train somebody, they're going to come and try to take this person from you. So my advice is this one: hire women. They are much, much better, loyal, etc., etc. So there is great pool of talent, but you will need to work for it. Don't take it just for granted. There's few stories that we brought companies. So H2O was one of the company from Korea that we brought. Neuron is a company. All of those companies want to attack US market, but for attacking that, they need hundreds of millions of dollars. Why don't you just come to Saudi, make a proof of concept, and then the money will follow you? We can talk about it later. I know that we're going to have a debate now, so I don't want to take too much time. There is a lot of government initiatives. Everything is written, so entering Saudi Arabia is easy, but when you decide to enter, you have to enter properly. Thank you.